The Jersey Swap podcast is sponsored by Apollo Home. Keep your house cool with a $29 HVAC cooling tune-up from Apollo Home. Also, just for you CST listeners, Apollo Home is offering a $1,101 off a new AC unit. That's $1,101 off. Our gift just for you. Give Apollo a call, send them a text, or schedule online at apollohome.com. The podcast is also sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury free. In fact, they help some of our local MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Jersey Swap podcast, where unlike the main show, we never rest. Every minute, every week, no days off. I am the Iron Horse here. But also every minute of every hour, we're looking into our opposition's playbook. We want that precious information on the next squad up. And this week, it's Caleb Porter and Revolution all over again. FC Cincinnati is on the road during this extended international break, paying a visit to my old stomping grounds. And I spell old with O-L-D-E, the E at the end, the old stomping grounds in New England. So pardon my accent. Sometimes I might speak like a true governor from Massachusetts. We have Sam Minton from the Blazing Musket back to talk about soccer in New England. Sam, let's bring you on. How is it going tonight, man?
Going good, going good. Yeah, it's been a while for the Revs, obviously, with not playing on the international break. So excited that one, they got to rest up, but also two, that now we get to talk about some Revolution soccer again.
You and me both. I mean, I really think that both of our teams needed some rest, needed some time to recover from our knocks. I can sort of speak on behalf of FC Cincinnati that we still have one or two people still out. I know that one local guy with a punctured lung is still recovering. But it's also a weird time. I mean, we're playing in the middle of between the Gold Cup, the Nations League, the Club World Cup. Everything's going nuts. But how are things going with the Musket right now?
Yeah, it's been going great. It's been interesting. We've obviously got a lot of soccer in New England. I was last weekend up at the Crest launch for Boston Legacy FC. I've gotten to go to some Portland Hearts of Pine matches. Obviously, you got to go up to Vermont for some matches. I think the only state I've not been in for soccer so far in New England is New Hampshire and Connecticut, and New Hampshire will probably change. I just won't step foot in Connecticut. So it's a whole lot of soccer going on, and we cover it all the way up from the MLSs and national teams all the way down to USL League 2. So while the Revolution haven't been playing, we've still been busy at the Musket.
Yeah, as much as I want to cover the Revolution in depth, you did bring up Boston Legacy. You brought up all the USL action that's going there. Maybe I could just top it off by saying, what team do you feel is the hottest team in New England right now? I mean, not just from a production and performance sort of stage, but what team right now is just selling like hotcakes up there?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to selling like hotcakes, I think Vermont. I think you might also too have a team like Portland Hearts of Pine, who's stepped onto the scene and really been able to make an impact, come out with some very impressive kits, but then also too have been able to cultivate a really nice community. But also want to give a shout out to Western Mass Pioneers. I think they've been having a really good season down in USL League 2. So kudos to them. But Vermont Green always has the nice jerseys, always is good at the marketing, and also too at the top of the Northeast Division. But as well, want to give a shout out to the Western Mass Pioneers and also to the Portland Hearts of Pine.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at USL too, and I mean, Seacoast United last year just burned things up late in the season and took that USL 2 title. But you have Vermont up there. You've got Western Massachusetts. It's a great time to be a New England fan and maybe even a Revolution fan. Maybe you can even say something like that. I mean, I was all prepared right now to, after FCC had beaten New England in a pretty close game here at TQL Stadium. The whole talk was, is he going to last the season? Is Caleb Porter really going to last as the head coach of the Revolution? And we're all surprised he's still there. I mean, I think we were hopeful he would be sacked by now, but that's no longer the case. Can you give us sort of a summary on what saved his bacon?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it goes down to the fact that, Revolution have started to win games and started to actually score goals. But a lot of the credit kind of goes to a formation change. It's been widely talked about, essentially moving to, three center backs on the back line, moving guys like Peyton Miller and Eli Feingold further up the field. And it seemed to kind of really propel this team to, getting 3 points and being able to score goals. They've been able to do it mostly through Carlos Hill, but some other guys have also stepped up. But really, the back line was performing well. They just couldn't score goals. So it seemed like, once again, Carlos Hill's really put the team on his back. And, the formation change seems to have worked in recent matches. It hasn't necessarily been as good. Revolution have been leaking some goals. Makes you wonder if there could be another formation change on the horizon. But overall, it really goes just back to the fact that, there was that tactical tweak and, the team really started to come together. It's now just all about seeing if that will last. And then also, too, just how this team's going to be able to continue to score goals.
Yeah, maybe it might be good to sort of bring this up. I had read one of Matt Doyle's articles at MLSsoccer.com. One of his big points, big bullet points that he brought up is that the switch to the back three was a surprising, wrinkle in tactics here. Before this switch, you guys were one win, one draw, 4 losses. Since then, you're undefeated, 5 wins, 4 draws. He pointed out why it's been working. The extra defense, more game for Heel to play. Is there anything you can bring up that sort of says, well, maybe this might not work?
Yeah, I would say this only the results kind of recently. I think they have kind of fixed it, but you look at matches against Orlando, and kind of around that point, they were letting up 3 goals a game, and it does make you wonder the fact that you kind of just have those center backs. You have kind of the outside backs playing further up the pitch. Could that be allowing for some opportunities on the counter? But mainly they have been able to do a good job of defending. Again, it really seems like it's just get Carlos Hill the ball and see what he's able to do. Leo Campana's been out with injury. Luca Langoni's been out with injury. And Luca Langoni, even though he's been out with an injury, he's kind of been a casualty of this formation change where, you kind of lose some spots up top. So you have guys like Thomas Shankala, you have Ignatius Ganago. Sort of the injuries have allowed for Langoni to briefly kind of get back into the lineup. But really, it's kind of a crunch, a selection headache, if you will, more further up the pitch. But I do think there's still some areas, whether it be on the counter, that teams can exploit. But so far, the Revolution have been able to do a great job. It seems to have changed things, whether it's almost a placebo effect and they just need something new, or just, like Doyle said, they have been able to defend well, but also to have been able to get Carlos Hill more involved. So it definitely was an interesting wrinkle. I did not see it coming. The Revolution brought in 2 center backs. I just assumed that, those would be the 2 guys, stick to the 4-2-3-1. It's been a tried and true formation for the Revolution. But now you've seen guys like Tanner Beeson, Wyatt Omsberg, get more playing time than a lot of us probably thought. And especially Beeson's been able to step up. So, besides the counter-attacking opportunities, I do think that this formation change has allowed the Revolution to defend well and also kind of get the attack jump started.
It sounds like you guys are probably going through the same type of experiment, the long-term experiment that we've had at FC Cincinnati, where, I think fans and pundits alike, local pundits alike, were sort of clamoring for a back four at sometimes. But when you have that back three, you have those wings there, you do tend to have a better opportunity to defend better. Unfortunately, though, I think we're seeing it at Cincinnati, it does affect the offense a little bit. Maybe, I guess, having a Carlos Hill in the middle who I'm not sure if I can compare his game to the likes of Lucho Acosta or Evander. Maybe can you give us sort of a little insight into what type of number 10 Carlos Hill is?
Yeah, he's definitely a player that has the freedom to kind of drift around the pitch, in the sense that he's a player who can, drift out wide. He's someone that's always on the ball, always demanding a presence from the opponents, especially when Bruce Areno's here, and it still continues. he's someone who's constantly getting hacked down by opponents just trying to stop him. But he might not have that flashing speed that you think of, prototypically, like wingers, guys like Thomas Shankali, Luca Langoni having. But just his ability on the ball is superb. He's able to get by opponents. And he's also someone who can just score some absolute bangers of goals. He's a free kick assassin and really able to, at moments, you almost just see him put his head down and realize that, all right, I need to do this by myself. And he's able to, score some curling, amazing goals. He's able to really make an impact. And, I think even though he is getting up there in age, he's continued to show that he's a top player, a top number 10 in MLS, and someone that you can continue to build a team around. So while you'd like for him to get some help, he's a player that, if he gets some space, if he gets a moment, he will make some magic happen. And, when he does have that trust in his opponents, he's also someone who's going to be able to find them in open space and, create chances. So overall, still one of the best number 10s in MLS. And, he had a slow start, but I think he's really coming to form as of late.
Yeah, not bad so far. I mean, 6 goals, 2 assists, probably not really anything you can say comparable to his MVP year. Do you feel that he has the potential to be one of those dark horses for an MVP award this year?
Yeah, I think just, especially having recently done my All-Star ballot, it seems like, there's a lot of guys who have really been up there, whether it just be goals or also goal and assist contributions. So I think just based on the numbers, it will be tough. But I do think if the Revolution are able to get healthier, get more attacking options around him, he's able to boost some of those assist numbers and get higher up there. There could be a chance. It is tough. It seems like right now I would probably project he's going to be someone who's, a coach's pick for the All-Star game, just based on what we've seen from All-Star voting. So it's kind of hard to see him being an MVP, just based on just how high quality some of the guys up front are doing so far. But I think if you just look at how valuable he is to this Revolution team, I think they would be in big trouble without him. And even though they have been able to have some other guys scoring goals and, helping out, I do think this team would probably be at the bottom. They're still not that high up, but further down of the table in the Eastern Conference if it wasn't for Carlos Gil.
Yeah, I think that they've got a lot of tools that still are in the bag to use. I honestly, on my short list for my starting 11 for the All-Star game, I had Eli Feingold on the right. So I felt that he has the opportunity to sort of be that piece. I started circling some other names here. I mean, you mentioned Gonago, and he's done pretty well up top. One of the names that I circled, and I think I had heard some rumors that he's actually getting interest overseas, Peyton Miller, as a possible name that could be there. Is there any truth to the tea leaves that he could be dealt to overseas at some point? And maybe if you can give a reason why.
Yeah, it's always with Peyton Miller. He's kind of, you look at Esmir Baratarovich getting the transfer over to PSV. It seemed like Peyton Miller was going to be the next guy up. Our own reporter, Seth McComber, he reported that Tottenham was interested. They've had conversations regarding Peyton Miller. It was also reported by Doug McIntyre that Prem teams are also interested. So I definitely think the interest is real, whether a deal happens. Obviously, he also is 17, so there would, I believe, have to wait a little while for him to officially go over. But it seems like a matter of when, not if it will happen. And I don't know if he'll go to a Tottenham. Maybe he goes to a team lower down the table. But he's just such a talented player, whether you look at the physical nature or you just look at his ability, especially in recent games. Him and Eli Feingold both have really been able to excel. They've been able to, not only create chances, but also get on the score sheet. So I definitely think it's real. I think he'll probably be the next big transfer for the New England Revolution, transfer out at least. He's really wise beyond his years. He really is committed to defending, but also being involved in the attack. Caleb Porter is a big fan of him. So he's definitely going to be the next guy up, and definitely someone who could play a important role in the matchup against FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, I really think that for some reason, like the Revolution seem to have that diamond in the mine that gets dealt Georgi Petrovic, for example, or even Heck, we're looking at it right now. I'm going to edit this out. What am I trying to say? Goalkeeper production.
Matt Turner, yeah.
Matt Turner. What? Yes, Matt Turner. Why he didn't come up into my brain? I
I
couldn't
mean, he
figure it
hasn't
out.
been having a good. Yeah, he hasn't been having a good go of it, so I don't blame you.
But he's also had his opportunity to now go to a new team and excel before the World Cup as well. So for some reason, New England has that diamond mine in there. And I definitely see Peyton Miller as being one of those names that could come up. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, the team has continued to kind of invest in the academy. You had guys like Eric Klein, Keegan Hughes, the Mario McIntosh hasn't got any playing time outside the Open Cup, but he's another guy. You know, they continue to invest, and it's just now kind of a matter of guys getting minutes. You know, you have Jack Paniotu being loaned to Hartford Athletic. Noel Buck ends up getting a move kind of falling out of favor with Caleb Porter, so he's now back with Bruce Arena, the San Jose Earthquakes. It's a good problem to have in the sense that you have a lot of young talent. It's just about getting them, you know, professional minutes compared to just kind of having them suffer in MLS Next Pro.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. I was one of those people like, get Noel Buck, get him to FC Cincinnati, get him in the orange and blue. We could really use someone like him playing, I think, sort of a reserve role for Pavel Buka. We really could have used somebody like him, but yeah, unfortunately, everybody wants to go and play for Bruce Arena and not his son, unfortunately. Let's cover a little bit how this team looked the last time we played. It was a 1-0 victory for FC Cincinnati the last time you guys came to town. A lot of notable names were not on either side of the ball. No Leo Campana, no Thomas Shankale for the Revs, but also on our side, we didn't have Evander, no Miles Robinson, no Obi Nwobodo, no Teenage Hadebe, no Kubo, probably no Robinson, Hadebe, or Kubo this time around either. But also the thing that I noticed is that there were a ton of shots in this game. Like 34 total shots, only 5 on frame. I feel like this was sort of I looked at this and I'm like, this might be the opportunity for Ivicic, your goalkeeper, to really become the next big thing for this team. I mean, do you feel his play as a goalkeeper has changed since that moment?
Yeah, I definitely think overall, just looking at this season compared to last season, you know, he has been much improved. You know, there have been some moments where he's looked a little shaky, but again, looking at the performance of the back line, I think Ivicic has been, you know, one of the best players of the season so far. He is able to make some absolute highlight reel saves, just real point blank saves that you think of guys like Georgia Petrovic, you think of Matt Turner's, just what they were able to do while they were in New England. You know, I don't think that Aljaž Ivicic is at that level. You know, I think he's a quality MLS goalkeeper, but I don't think he's someone who's going to be heading over to Europe. But I do think, you know, he's been a key part of the Revolution's success, just his ability to keep the ball in the net, ability to make some really impressive saves. I think he's really, especially at the start of the season, is one of their better performing players. Is probably him and Carlos Heel. So I do think he's really been able to come into his form this season. He's really been able to make losses turn into draws turn into wins. So really have been impressed with his play. And I would expect hopefully another quality performance against FC Cincy.
Yeah, I mean, his clean sheets are stacking up. That's for sure. I mean, ever since that 1-0 loss to FC Cincinnati, I'm looking at the stats right here. 1, 2, 3, 4 clean sheets in a row, 4 wins off of that. And then even the draws, a 0-0 against San Jose. And then last week, a big 3-0 victory against Montreal. I mean, things are starting to click for this team. And it sparks a lot of fear into me because I think this New England team is ready to sort of claim their parking space at home. They have 3 in a row at home. I'm counting it up right now. 8 out of 11 at home coming up. You guys are going to have a nice bit of home field advantage coming up. And I think part of that is going to be your defense. Your defense terrifies me, to be honest.
I cannot believe it. You know, looking at you know, heading into the season, I think probably the biggest question mark was the back line. In the sense you had Brian Ceballos, you know, he played with Fortaleza, also has European experience, no MLS experience. You also have Mamadou Fofana, lots of, you know, French domestic league experience. Both did not speak the same language, and they were expected to come in, start, And so far, they've done a great job. They had their hiccups along the way, but I think they've been one of the better signings that the Revolution have had this season, especially when you have guys like Leo Campana dealing with injury. The entire back line really has really been impressive. Like you mentioned, Eli Feingold has also really been able to come into his form. He took that starting job away from a guy like Brandon By, and now it seems like he has the run of it and he's going to continue to have it. So it really has been impressive, kind of the entire back line. And, obviously a guy like Ryan Ceballos kind of struggled with injury. I think he should be back for this match. I wouldn't say for certain, but it will be interesting to see. He kind of was dealing with a concussion issue. But even then, Tanner Beeson has really stepped up, and I've been impressed with what he's been able to do. He was a guy who probably seemed like he was going to be a third or fourth center back, and he's been able to step up in this now formation change and play a key role. So yeah, the back line has been really impressive, and definitely for the entire season has been performing well. So they deserve a lot of credit.
Okay, so let's go into how this lineup could look. I mean, we're definitely locking in that this is the back three, a 3-4-1-2 perhaps. I think the suggestions were Fofana really being that star in the middle. Whether or not Keegan Hughes or Tanner Beeson play outside of him, or is there a possibility that Ceballos comes back? I think he was on the injured reserve for a little bit.
Yeah, so he was dealing with, head injury, so I can only assume it is a concussion. I think he should hopefully be back. Obviously, tomorrow we'll talk with Caleb Porter. Hopefully get a bit more clarification there. I would probably say Fofana, Ceballos, and I'd probably say Tanner Beeson. If not, if a guy like Ceballos is out, I would say Keegan Hughes does get in there. Peyton Miller and Eli Feingold out wide. You're going to continue to have guys like Matt Polster, Alassane Youssef, Carlos Hill in the midfield. And then when you kind of look at most likely a striker pairing up top, Leo Campana, again, dealing with injury, possibly could have picked up another injury. He was on international duty. At least according to the Federation, again, it was kind of through Google Translate, so maybe we are misreading it, but they said to begin rehab, which almost sends that he had another injury, which would not be great. So I imagine, you could get a combination of Luis Diaz and Thomas Shankali and Matthew Rudy, probably starting up top. And, especially with Langoni and Campana dealing with injury, Shankali really needs to kind of step up and be able to score goals and fill in that hole.
Yeah. It sounds to me like it's going to be two teams that are sort of similar in the sense that they're really recovering from injuries in bad spots. You look at our back line, no Nick Hagland, no Miles Robinson because of the international duty. So in all likelihood, you're probably going to see a combination of an already brittle Matt Miazga, along with maybe Gilberto Flores on his left. I'm going to say maybe even Alvis Powell on his right. Hopefully you're going to start seeing Luca Urshano finding his spot within the FC Cincinnati areas. I don't see Pat Noonan deviating from his back three, back five sort of lineup, and that unfortunately affects the offense. We'll see if Kevin Denke and whoever he's paired with up top. We're hoping it's Dado Valenzuela. He's been doing well in his reserve role, but he's been getting more starting minutes. And if that can mean a healthy attack and they're able to solve a few problems that they've had for connecting, maybe this does turn into a New England, an FC Cincinnati win. That being the case, Sam, how do you expect this game to end?
Yeah, I think there is the potential for it to almost mirror the match that was a match that was early on this season. I'll give it a 1-0 Revolution win this time. I do think having all that rest, having being able to hopefully get a guy like Brian Ceballos back, I do think there's potential for the clean sheet. And, I do think, maybe the CF Montreal is more credit to CF Montreal not being the best team than the Revolution absolutely having their scoring boots on. So I think it could mirror that game. And I think, like you mentioned, there's some injuries on the back line. It'll be interesting to see just how the Cincy attack performs. Obviously, a guy like Evander is very, very talented. But, when you have limited options, it can be difficult. So I'll give the New England Revolution the win, 1-0.
I usually am someone who's like, I will proceed with caution. I will be like, I will either predict a loss or a draw when it's on the road. But I really think FC Cincinnati is healthy enough for their offense to start clicking. And I really think that one of the issues that they had on defense was that Hadebe was not really, I think, gelling in his location. If we can give him some time off and see if the likes of Flores can come in and reclaim his spot as the fourth center back, someone who comes off the bench and gives the likes of Miazga and in this case Powell a breather. I hope he can find his form. We really need somebody who can be that left back, right back sort of pivot that we had from the likes of Yerson Mosquera a few years ago. So I'm going to say, give me a 2-1 victory for FC Cincinnati. I think that they have been snake bit. They've realized that they're bleeding their own blood. And this week, I think Pat's finally going to be like, okay, I gave you a break. Let's figure things out. We can plan this. We can make this work. I think you see Luca Orshano finally break his scoreless streak. He gets a goal. And I think we get a second one somewhere out of the blue. Maybe it's Kai Kamara affecting his old team.
Oh, man, I forgot about Kai Kamara, man.
And to be honest,
I'm so upset he did not end up back in New England.
And when I say his old team, I'm saying half of the MLS, basically. So
true, very true. I'm glad he was able to add another one, even though he couldn't come back to the Revolution. At least it was a new team.
Yeah. So we're both predicting wins for our respective sides. We'll put that in stone for right now. I want to also wrap up this just to talk a little random stuff about the New England area. I know you had mentioned the new Boston Legacy logo, the new Boston NWSL team. They finally rewrote their logo, and from what I saw, it was like a swan that was sort of in the same design as Minnesota United's logo. I mean, is the general idea that this is much improved?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely much improved. I mean, it probably had one of the worst starts a club could have.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, they worked with Matthew Wolf, owner of Vermont Green, world-renowned designer. Obviously, kind of, the tie of the swan is, in the Boston Commons. They have the swan boats. It's interesting, I wasn't as high on the logo, but then our photographer, Dolan, he kind of explained to me everything. You got to think this club is looking to differentiate itself from the New England Revolution. So they kind of have the hold on revolutionary history, but they were able to get something that tied to Boston's legacy, thinking of the Commons, thinking of the swan boats. So definitely think that, it's a good job, again, like you mentioned, kind of some similarities to Minnesota United. Our NWSL writer Jackie Contreras mentioned, I believe, some ties to Angel City, but I think Matt Wolf also did that logo, so a little bit expected. But overall, definitely a much better job. Definitely, looking at the name, a much better name. Looked good on merch from, what I've been able to see. So now we can finally get past the name and logo. And now it's kind of more focused on the soccer, and it seems like could be naming a head coach soon, and then hopefully as well a player.
And the colors fit too. I mean, the green and black, it's a little bit of a tie to the Celtics. I like that Boston sort of claiming that color as their own. I don't think there are too many solid green colors in NWSL, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you're definitely correct. And at least on the scarf they were selling on at their crest launch event, did have some Dunkin' Donuts colors. Did have some of that fuchsia, some orange. So hopefully they can integrate that in a little bit too, because we need a soccer team in New England to be sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts at this point.
We need one of those the pink and like light brown color uniforms that we saw from like the Super Bowl commercial with Matt Damon. And
oh yeah, give us the Dunk Kings kits. We need them.
Give us a Dunk Queens version.
There
of
we
Dunk
go.
Kings.
Oh my God, the marketing, it writes itself.
You got to do that. You got to do that, man. Sam, we want to thank you very much for your time. It's explaining that New England has sort of reinvented itself. They're no longer, it's no longer a team where everybody's gone to San Jose in the off season. Finally putting something together. We're a little shamed that Caleb Porter's not sacked yet, but I think that's more, I'm talking the common Cincinnati fan than anything. But thank you very much for joining us. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web?
Yeah, definitely. You can find myself in the website, the Blazing Musket. You can find us on Blue Sky. Also, you can find us putting out a ton of content on Instagram. We also do have a podcast that bears our name. It's more talking about soccer in all of New England and also across the United States, Blazing Musket podcast, hosted by Thomas Pinzone. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. But once again, really happy to be on another episode of Jersey Swap, and hopefully we get a good game on Saturday.
Yeah, and also, let's go Rhode Island FC. They're my team of choice down there. Once again, thank you to everybody that listens. Keep us going and powering through these podcasts. You can find it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can find it at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. You can find it at Cincy Soccer Talk on your favorite social media platforms. And you can find it here on YouTube as well. We're starting to do a lot more video coordinated things. Sam, thank you very much for joining us. Keep your kit clean, and we hope to hear from you again.